So let's start right here. This is
Oh,
Mikhaila Peterson. Mikhaila Peterson is going to say that, when we were kids,
That
clearly
explains. I've been wondering.
the Holocaust
I've been on
happened,
X and I've been like,
and the Holocaust
how
was
is it,
terrible.
Like in grade 4, like when we were kids, I feel like generally people knew what the Holocaust was, and
Right.
like that it was clearly evil, and it was like, how could people do that? Like everyone kind of learned about that, right? And I was
Right.
like, how are there people online now that are coming out and being like, well, maybe history isn't exactly what we were told? It was like, how are you? People know who you are. Aren't you worried that you're saying those things and people know who you like?
Right.
Like, that's insane. I've seen some insanity, but this anti-Semitic stuff that's going on is like, haven't you read anything?
Right.
Don't you know that this is like a repeat of history? Repeatedly, this is what happens. You're gonna.
Yeah, so talk about the pot calling the kettle black. Mikhaila Peterson is okay with the genocide that's happening in Palestine. Mikhaila Peterson is okay with the Holocaust that's happening, the Holocaust of our times, and she's sitting there playing, how did this happen, The Holocaust happened. The Holocaust was bullshit. You're not supposed to exterminate an entire group of people. That's what Israel's doing right now. So, Mikhaila Peterson, I don't know what she's trying to say, and she's like, are you insane? I mean, when this video here is, I helped break up a Free Palestine protest. So she's okay with breaking up a Free Palestine protest? What the hell are you talking about? Like, what are you talking about? This is the Holocaust of our time. 300,000 people have been killed. 300,000. He was saying about moving 1.7 million people from Gaza to Egypt and Jordan. There's 2.3 million Palestinians. What happened to 600,000 Palestinians? So I'm pretty sure 300,000 people being killed is the lower estimate. Let's listen to some of this at the beginning here.
So
Wild.
I actually helped destroy those.
Oh my
And I haven't talked enough about the
Did you
how
go
I
there?
did it. Yes.
Oh.
So I, with my friend Cam Higby, we went and got the same red wristbands over at Staples. I knew it wouldn't be that hard to find because all it took to get into the encampment was a bright red wristband. So I went about the exact same ones, a whole roll, and we went in there. I was in disguise. I had my pink bucket hat on and everything, and I was basically there for research purposes. And I was going around having conversations with people, and these people are so uneducated. And I don't even say that in a harsh way. I'm saying like they genuinely are the definition of ignorant. So there was a...
It's not insulting. It's just the definition of ignorance.
Yeah, like that's me being nice about it because I'm looking.
So you can just tell by how she's reacting, like, whoa, you broke up a Free Palestine protest? How was that experience? So, she's given a whole bunch of oxygen to the, genociders. She is okay with the Holocaust of our times. Why? Well, she loves her dad, and that's all right. You can love your father, but can your father be wrong? It sucks because I've actually respected Mikhaila, whatever, and Jordan on, a different level. They are conservatives. They're clearly right-wing conservatives. I like Mikhaila, how she had said that the way that people talk, if somebody has an agenda when they talk, if they're trying to convince somebody, and it just makes me think of her psychotherapy, her psychoanalyst therapy, there's a thing about how when you talk, instead of having a predetermined conclusion where the conversation is going to go, you just start talking and you just kind of say what the ideas are in your mind. Instead of going for an agenda, you just kind of talk out loud and you hear yourself talk and then you just kind of follow what you're saying. So it's more spontaneous. So Mikhaila Peterson was talking about how you need to be more spontaneous when you speak. And I like that. Jordan Peterson, he has inspired me in different ways as well. So it was very disappointing to hear Jordan Peterson had typed on Twitter for Netanyahu to give Palestine hell. Give the children of Israel, give the Jesus Christ, the Bethlehemians. Jesus was born in Bethlehem. Bethlehem is in Palestine. So Gaza, the West Bank, and Bethlehem. They've killed 300,000 Jesus Christ. How's Christian Zionism okay with the murder of 300,000 Jesus Christ? I didn't know if the Jesus Christ story was real because it said that King Herod was doing a slaughter of the innocents. And it's like, oh my God, what kind of king would be so depraved and so wicked that they would just order their soldiers to go around killing a bunch of children, and the soldiers went around and killed a bunch of kids? That's the same thing we were told about Moses, and there's a lot of mythology surrounding Moses. So it's almost like, oh, they're just trying to make Jesus seem like he's Moses, so there's a slaughter of the innocents. It's more of a literary device than it is about the truth of the situation. Because what kind of nation, what kind of fucking country would support, arm, money, UN, umbrella? What kind of country, what kind of president would give $7 billion on top of the $25 billion we've already given for the genocide? What kind of nation, what kind of king, what kind of president would carry on with the Holocaust of our times against mostly old people, women, and children? People in refugee camps, bombing schools, bombing hospitals, tearing up the roads. They're trying to steal the land. They've been trying to steal the land since 1948. Harry Truman said he wasn't going to give all of Palestine to Israel. And then Harry Truman also says when you move 5 to 6 million people into an area where 5 or 6 million people already live, you're going to cause some problems. Yeah, the problem is the 5 or 6 million people that already live there is probably going to be like, why'd you just put 5 or 6 million people on top of our fucking heads? The Zionist project has been around for, over 100 years now, but really the Palestinians have been around since the land of Canaan, since the Philistines and the Canaanites. And even in the book of Kings and Numbers and a lot of places, the Old Testament God would say that Israel did wicked in the eyes of the Lord. In the eyes of God, Israel was doing wicked, and so he condemned Israel for doing wicked. In one passage he even said that he was going to allow the Canaanites to be their neighbors, so that way when Israel grew too murderous and they started murdering too much, then the Canaanites would check them. There's also the 10 Commandments. Thou shalt not steal other people's land. Thou shalt not murder a bunch of children. Thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's wife, thy neighbor's land, thy neighbor's goods, thy neighbor's ox. Israel's breaking the 10 Commandments. 77% of the Jewish people in America are against the genocide of what Israel's doing. So Peterson, Mikhaila, she can't stand anybody pointing out the hypocrisy. That you're supposed to be the good person, but you're all about murdering a bunch of babies? Mikhaila, why are you okay with murdering a bunch of babies?
Give them hell, Netanyahu.
There it is. Give him hell. And then eventually he's just going to say he went about it the wrong way. He should have done the long form. But that's his sentiments. That's his sentiments. With Jordan Peterson, let's let this play a little bit. He's like, yep, I sure do agree with that.
Says anything about this. Were you surprised by the scale of the blowback? Do you wish he'd phrased that tweet differently?
He just said he got a lot of blowback. Yep, I sure got a lot of blowback.
Do you have any regrets about it?
Well, Twitter is a very complicated social media platform, and it's been difficult for me to learn how to use it wisely. And I'm not alone in that, because it's difficult to be
okay there, Jordan. I like Jordan because what he had said, and he does, seem to be, he said he put out a video there where he was long-form reflective, so I'll have to check that out later. Now here you have Mikhaila, however the hell you say her goddamn name. She's talking to one side, an Israeli expert, and then a Palestinian expert. She talks to Norman Finkelstein. So let's listen to this guy for a second.
Startup Middle East, they want to be a part of that. But they are cursed by a leadership that refuses to embrace the path of building a future together and constantly dredges up complaints, mostly false, about the past to justify violence in the present.
Okay, and then for like the current situation for Hamas, the Palestinian side is claiming that they're freedom fighters, right? And that their story, if I could sum it up badly, is they're fighting back against this Israeli power that's slowly forcing them into smaller and smaller areas. That's what that side is saying. And I looked at the stats about how people in America, who I don't think are very, I'm certainly not educated in this matter, at all.
Did you hear what she was about to say? I don't think the people of America are very educated about this matter. How are you not educated about this? Thou shalt not murder. How the fuck is that hard? Why is that so goddamn difficult? War is murder, okay? So if you want to say somehow you were attacked and then you wanted to do a proportional attack, right? They killed one person, so you killed one of their people. You did something like that. But if you want to say that some asshole attacked another asshole and then you just wiped out all the children of that fucking country, justice is eye for an eye. So 1,200 people killed in October 7th, well, that would justify, 1,200 people being killed by Israel to Palestine, right? Have a proportional attack. They've killed 300 fucking thousand. That's an eye for 100 eyes. That's an eye for, nearly 250 eyes. That's an eye for 250 eyes. I remember when King Saul had told David if he wanted to marry his daughter, then he's going to have to go and get 100 dick foreskins. You're going to have to go chop off the dicks of 100 Philistines and bring back their dick foreskins. That's what King Saul said to King David if he wanted to marry his daughter, Michael. And David went out and brought 200 dicks. He brought 200 Philistine dicks. How about that, Mr. Dowdy Mustafa? The idea was King Saul was sending David out to go die in battle, but King David was just killing Philistines left and right. Well, Philistines, a.k.a. Palestine. Alexander the Great conquered Gaza. Palestine's been around for a long-ass time. Even the covenant of Abraham he gave his chosen people the Holy Land. I think that the chosen people of God would be the oppressed, the poor, the down, the disheartened, the disturbed, the lepers, the prostitutes, the tax collectors, those who are on the margins of society. And so both Islam, or all three, Christianity, Islam, and Judaism, is all Abrahamic faiths. So since they're all from Abraham, since they all claim Abraham as a patriarch in their religion, then which one of us are the chosen people? Jesus was Jewish. And Islam respects Moses and Jesus as prophets, but then Muhammad was the final prophet. He was the Savior. He was the Messiah. So all three religions could say, well, we were the chosen people. We were the one given the covenant. Abraham promised the land to us. The Americans are stupid, huh? Is that what you're saying, Mikhaila Peterson? You asshole. And you're so intelligent. Why don't you read a couple fucking things, motherfucker? Right now with the United States doing some saber rattling against Canada. I guess he lives in California now. But ultimately, I think morals is pretty easy. It's pretty simple. If you got two neighbors, two households, one person can't attack another person. One household can't attack another household. One nation can't attack another nation. One country can't attack another nation. If there is an attack, then you have a right to defend yourself. I don't like these imperialist wars. I don't like these wars of aggression, these wars of conquest. But if we were invaded, the United States of America, we would have absolute 100% right to defend ourselves against those invaders, against those attackers. And then we would have to figure out what the response would be to the homeland of where the attackers came from. You definitely have a right to defend yourself. Israel's got a right to defend themselves. Palestine's got a right to defend themselves as well.
When it started, I had almost no background information about what was going on. It was just, chaos online, and you're getting thrown different stories from both sides. What is Gaza like for people who live there? Because from what I've been told, Israel's kind of separated this area and landlocked it, and it's horrible for people there.
Yeah. First of all, those people complaining about the map need to take some responsibility.
It's weird. Why did she have that nervous laughter right there? What was the nervous laughter about? And it's really terrible because they're murdering and they're not allowing food or humanitarian aid to go in, and they keep doing settlements and they keep stealing piece by piece by piece, and they've surrounded them, and they keep on terrorizing them. If it's like almost like it's a settler, colonial, white supremacist movement, then it's just racism against the Arabs, and they just keep stealing the land and stealing their blood and stealing their lives and stealing their treasures. It's like they're just going to take Gaza and put a Riviera on it and put Trump Hotel, a bunch of Trump hotels and casinos and Trump universities up and down that nice beachfront property. That's what it seems like. Nervous laughter.
Palestinians rarely take responsibility for their mistakes, the decisions their leaders made. They could have had a state that would have been 70% of this land in 1937. They rejected it violently, murdering hundreds, if not thousands, of Jews. Holocaust happens, the United Nations gets involved, decides this time we're going to make another two-state offer. This time we're going to give the Jews 50%, the Arabs 50%, although, like I said, the Jewish 50% was 70% desert. They could have said yes. Instead, they said no, and the very next day, they launched a war of annihilation against the Jews of Palestine. They like to complain about the Nakba, the disaster of 48. They never take responsibility for the fact that they were the ones who rejected the offer of a state, and they launched a violent attack against their Jewish neighbors the very next day. This was a war Israel did not want. This was a war Israel did not seek. They wanted to just...
Propaganda is so crazy. So he's sitting there saying, well, back in 1937, they were given an offer. Who was given an offer? Some fucking, some fucking guy, and they said no. And that's what, before you militarily took them over. There's so much empty land all over the world. Why would you want to take land where other people are occupied? Why don't you just take the fucking desert land and just get along with your fucking neighbors? It's like, Jesus Christ, man.
Extremists, violent extremists, have killed the dream. And my only hope for the future is that the dream will live, that this too shall pass, that Israel will defend itself, will dismantle Hamas, and that one day the Palestinians may get leaders who don't want to murder and destroy Israel, but actually want to build Palestine. That's the day there'll be peace. That's the day there'll be prosperity. That's the day when the Zionist vision will come to pass, and the region will become what it always should have been.
Okay, well, thank you for joining me. That was very informative. Much appreciated.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate the opportunity.
Norman Finkelstein, welcome to my podcast.
Let's talk about Norman Finkelstein here in a second. I like this clip right here. He was saying this.
A moron is Jordan Peterson. He's got nice hair plugs. I'll grab.
He says Jordan Peterson is a moron, and he's got nice hair plugs. He'll grant him that. So, kind of taking some pop shots there right at the top.
But beyond that, come on. This is not serious.
Yeah.
He said he's interviewed by what's his name, Piers Morgan, and Piers Morgan says, "So, Mr. Peterson, can you tell us what happened on October 7th?" And he says, "Well, what happened was the mullahs in Iran were losing power, and so they decided to rattle the chain of Hamas, and Hamas launched the attack." I was like, what are you talking about? All the intelligence information shows that neither Hezbollah nor Iran even knew that attack was going to happen. What are you talking about? These people.
So clearly Jordan Peterson doesn't really know what he's talking about. Jordan Peterson once said that he really likes to troll the liberals. It's like Rush Limbaugh, well, it's the liberals' fault. To me, liberals are the ones that care about the community. They care about everybody in America, everybody in their community. They have heart, and they want change. They don't want things to just be static and just be stagnant and just to stay the same and always be the same damn thing over and over again. So if my definition is correct, it also came from left and right with the assembly in the French Revolution, then that means being a liberal means you want change, you care about the community, and you have heart. So it's interesting that there's some people they say they're on the left, but that just means they're liberal, according to my understanding of the word. But they're shitting on the liberals too. So everybody's shitting on the liberals because what? The Democrats are liberal? The Democrats are conservative. They're the ones that did a genocide. Does that sound like liberal Democrats to you? They're liberal with their bombs. They're liberal with throwing people in prison. They're liberal with throwing people off of welfare. They're liberal with the police state. What the fuck is liberal about Joe Biden? His entire political career has been conservative. His entire political career has been conservative.
Thank you for having me on.
So
you're welcome.
I wanted to bring you on to get a different perspective of what's going on in the Middle East.
Where's her manners at?
Not educated in this area at all. So I have a list of questions to ask you, but let's get started. I think we should start with just a brief background of...
After doing this 2-hour video, you can't really claim that you're not educated about the thing anymore, right? You've had 2 experts to talk to. I've been reading these things, I've been following this stuff my entire life. And because, it's like I don't know, when I started it's like you want people to be wrong. So you want it to be right that Israel's doing what they're supposed to be doing. But they weren't. And so I've had to go 180.
The history of the Israeli and Palestine conflict and what led to today.
Obviously, when you try...
Like, what does Mikhaila Peterson want the Palestinian people to do? Does she want them to just commit massive suicide, just one big mass suicide, just to have the Palestinian people jump off a cliff, just for the Palestinian people to drown? Does that all Mikhaila Peterson wants? For the Palestinian people to all just drown? Would that be more convenient for Mikhaila? Is that what you would be okay with, Mikhaila?
To give a background story of a conflict, the question is always, where do you begin? Because depending on where you begin, it can be seen as a partisan issue. I will take where we begin at 1948. The indigenous population of Palestine numbered about 1,300,000. What were called back then the Zionist settlers, namely Jews who came to Palestine roughly from the beginning of the 20th century on. They numbered roughly 600,000. By 1947, there was an irreconcilable conflict between the indigenous Arab population and the Zionist Jewish settlers. That conflict was then thrown into the hands of the newly created United Nations, and the UN its designated responsibility was to try to work out a resolution, a settlement of the conflict, not necessarily applying the highest principles of justice, but trying to combine, as in most conflicts, principles of justice with practicality, what's possible. The United Nations General Assembly, in what's called UN Resolution 181, it divided Palestine, or proposed that Palestine be divided into 2 states, an Arab state which would comprise approximately 44% of Palestine, and a Jewish state which would comprise approximately 56% of Palestine. On the Arab side did not accept that recommendation for 2 main reasons. One, they were the indigenous population, and number 2, and therefore their rights should have priority, or their desires and aspirations should have priority. And number 2, because the division did not remotely correlate with the demographic balance in Palestine. The 600,000 Jews were allocated 56%. The Palestinian Arabs were allocated 44%. A
And he had said that there was 1.3 million Palestinians. 1.3 million got 44%, and 600,000 got 56%. So the minority got the majority of the land, and the majority of the people got the minority. That's not right. That's not fair. That's utter bullshit. Norman Finkel's, it's hard to listen to this guy, but let's listen to him.
Conflict then ensued.
1 minute!
What's called the First Arab-Israeli War, in which neighboring Arab states also intervened. By the end of the war, Israel had absorbed not the 56% that was allocated it in the partition resolution 181, but they absorbed 80% of Palestine. Two areas were not absorbed by Israel. Number one, the Gaza Strip, which came under Egyptian administrative control.
For some, it's just a heater switch. For others, it's survival. In Gaza, where winter bites the hardest, families depend on scraps to stay warm and cook their meals. Ummah is here, delivering wood to those with nothing else to rely on.
Shukran.
Your kindness sparks warmth and hope. For every $10 you help us deliver enough wood to keep a family warm for a week. Donate now to help us reach more families in need.
Behind me is a picture of the most tracked flights right now as we speak. And as you can see, it's all just flights leaving Tel Aviv, going outside, people from Israel fleeing, trying to seek refuge in other places. Country for many, many years, and they've had to be forced to live there anticipating when the next explosion is going to happen, and it could even take their own lives too. Wallahi, when things like this happen, Allah doesn't just make the truth crystal clear, but He also exposes the hypocrites. That's why you have people like the notorious ultra-crepidarian that is Jordan Peterson posting a tweet saying give them hell to the leader of the Israelis as if they've not been living through hell for 75 plus years already. So to that, we as Muslims, we say, may Allah give every oppressor and everyone who supports these oppressors living hell on this earth, perhaps that they wake up before it's too late. And finally, I want to draw your attention to something that's actually incredibly ironic. For more than 75 years of them trying to occupy this land so hard because they love this land so much, and at the slightest difficulty, they're running away like cowards. And that's why Allah's words will always reign supreme, where He says, وَلَتَجِدَنَّهُمْ, talking about the people of Israel, the children of Israel, وَلَتَجِدَنَّهُم أَحْرَصَ النَّاسِ عَلَى حَيَاتِ وَمِنَ الَّذِينَ أَشْرَكُوا. You will surely find them clinging on to life more than any people, even the polytheists. يَوَدُّ أَحَدُهُمْ لَوْ يُعَمَّرُ أَلْفَ سَنَةٍ وَمَا هُوَ بِمُزَحْزِحِهِ مِنَ الْعَذَابِ أَن يُعَمَّرَ وَاللَّهُ بَصِيرٌ بِمَا يَعْمَلُونَ. Every single one of them wishes to live for even 1,000 years. But even if they were to live 1,000 years, not a single one of them will be able to flee the punishment of Allah, and Allah is all-seeing of what they do. Allah promises that their time is coming, and there's nothing they can do about it.
Against the guy. I just think that he's been a bit hypocritical, and then, truthfully, the only time I've been genuinely a bit appalled by any of his actions was the tweet he made on Israel-Palestine, when he said, give them hell. I know that's an easy thing to say, and it's an expression that people use, and they throw it around flippantly. But I think when you actually wish hell upon other human beings, I think it's a disgusting thing to do, because hell is that 15-year-old girl with no legs, and her parents were dead. Well, hell is, you see her crying her eyes out, begging to die. That is hell. And I don't think you should genuinely wish hell on anyone, Israel or Palestinian, anyone. I'm a humanist. I don't want anybody to die.
Well,
when he was wishing hell on an entire population,
he did express regret for the way he phrased it.
And he should,
and
because it's disgusting. I've not wished hell on the Israelis. I've not wished hell on the Israeli state. I don't want any Israeli civilian to go through what that 15-year-old Palestinian girl's going through. Not a single one.
He said about you, Jordan Peterson, I'm not particularly happy to be grouped with Andrew Tate. I think there are some elements about what he does that
and the West, what came to be called the West Bank, including East Jerusalem, which came under Jordanian control. In the course of Israel's creation in 1948, it expelled about 90% of the population within the border, 90% of the indigenous population within the borders that became Israel. Of those 90%, roughly 750,000